before we get started?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you know that Korach's wife was the one who motivated or pushed him to have the rebellion. But then
Alito's
there's
wife and Korach's wife, yeah.
yeah, but there was the other guy, On, or right, who was in the mix, and Owen comes home and goes, "Oh my God, I'm gonna get to be in Korach's rebellion. I'm so excited." And his wife says, "What are you crazy? You don't want to be in the rebellion. You won't do any better under Korach than you did under Moses. You're just gonna be in the same position you were. Don't do this. Don't do this." But so she feeds him a potion and he goes to sleep. And then she and her daughter take off their headscarves and they sit by the tent door so that the messengers show up and they won't come in because they don't want to come in past the women. So then when the ground opens up, it opens up to all the people who are involved and it starts opening up under Owen's bed. And Owen's wife is there and she grabs the bed and she's trying to pull it. She's struggling. She's going, oh, don't take my husband. Don't take my husband. Please. I promise he won't hang out with Korach. So Moses kind of hears about this and says okay. She says now she tells her husband to go and apologize, and he does go and apologize. And the moral of the story is always listen to your wife.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Leslie. Good to see you. Shabbat shalom.
That's a great
That's
story.
A great midrash, especially since On's name disappears, so it explains a lot. Very interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're ready for the. Okay, I'm gonna have to separate the two of you. Paul, Jay.
Present.
All right, remember that in the room or on Zoom, people can hear everything in the room. Okay, now we're about to begin. Bracha, please. In cacophony, as usual, Baruch you, source of all life and wisdom, who has sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us to soak in your divine revelation.
Amen.
And amen. All right, we have a very juicy parsha this week. It's the rebellion of Korach, and I want to sort of come at it from different perspectives to see what's going on here. The pshat, the sort of plain level of things, or the parent level of things, or the contextual meaning level of things, and midrashic, and even the mystical. So we're going to dive in. And yeah, let me share my screen. Here we go. So I've called this Korach extenuating grief. And you know how, like when you're watching a television series and you first see what happened in the last episode. So I thought it was important to see what happened in the last episode first to give us a background. And really the background of grief. What?
Last week at Open Book.
Last week at Open Book. Actually, but we didn't do this passage at Open Book. So last Parsha, and as the Torah turns, to use a phrase from Rabbi David Eber, here's what happened. So the spies did what the spies did. And 10 of the spies sort of said, we can't do this, right? We can't go up to the promised land. And 2 of the spies, Yeshua and Caleb, said, we can. And they were punished terribly. And here's the punishment. Adonai spoke further to Moses and Aaron. Ad matai la'ida hara'ah hazot asher hema malinim alai. How much longer shall that wicked community keep muttering against me? Et tlunot b'nei Israel. I'm sorry. Et tlunot b'nei Israel asher hema malinim alai shamati. Heeded the incessant mutterings of the Israelites against me. So God has really had enough, right? It's just like parsha after parsha, complaint after complaint. How long are they going to do this? And I could always already see Nikki is not going to like this passage. Immoralim, chayani nu'um Adonai. So God is kind of swearing, right? Making a note. Say to them, as I live, says Adonai, Imlo kasher dibartem be'oznai ken e'eselachem. I will do to you just as you have urged me. So what's going on here? How is God about to do to Bnei Israel what they have urged God to do? So think about that question as we go forward in the following verses. Amidbar hazeh yiplu pibrechem. Your corpses will fall in this wilderness. V'kol pibrechem l'chol misparchem miben esrim shana v'mala asher halinotem alai. In this very wilderness shall your carcasses drop of all you men who are recorded in your various lists from the age of 20 years up. You have muttered against me. Im atem tavo el haaretz asher nasati et yadi l'shaken etchem ba ki im Kaleb ben Yefuna v'Yeshua ben Nun. Not one shall enter the land which I swore to settle you, save Caleb, son of Not and Joshua, son of Nun. So what did the spies say? The 10 spies say, no, we can't. We can't go up. No, we won't. We don't want to. So God's saying, okay, you won't. Except for these two who said, yes, we can. We can. So it's a kind of midah keneged midah, a measure for measure approach to punishment, which one often sees in the Torah. It's probably not helping you, Nikki. Noticing the literary kind of symmetry here,
I get it.
right? Their actions are being mirrored by the outcome. You get it?
I get it.
You can still complain.
No, this is just, it's justified.
It's justified. You think it's justified? Okay, good. I made the Torah's case. Imatem. Okay, wait. Hold on. Okay, yeah. 31. V'tapchem asher amartem. And your children, who you said would be carried off, kind of hostages. V'heveti otam v'yadu et ha'arish asher na'astem bam. Your children who you said you would be carried off, these will I allow to enter. They shall know the land that you have rejected. So it's interesting. So they said their children will be carried off to the land. And indeed, God is saying, yes, they will go to the land. Right? They'll go up to the land, not as, God forbid, hostages, but as people who are sort of going up to fulfill the promise, God's promise. Okay. 32. Ufigrechem atem yiplu b'midbar hazeh. Your carcasses shall drop in this wilderness. So it's very plain and stark and brutal. Uvenechem, you ro'im b'midbar. Or your children roam the wilderness. Arba'im shana, for 40 years. V'nasu esnutechem adon pigrechem b'midbar. Suffering for your faithlessness until the last of your carcasses is down in the wilderness. So I think they're 2 years in, and then another 38 years are added as sort of a result of this episode, this event. Okay. B'mispar hayamim asher tartem et haaretz arba'im yom lashana tis'u et avonotechem arba'im shana yidatem et tnu'ati. You shall bear your punishment for 40 years, corresponding to the number of days, 40 days that you scatter the land, a year for each day. If you didn't think until now that it was measure for measure, you know now that it's measure for measure. That's what I do to all the wicked man that has been banded together against me in this very wilderness. They shall die and be finished. Okay, did I read that one? Hebrew, yeah. אני אדוני דיברתי אם לא זאת אעשה לכל העדה הרעה הזאת הנועדים עליי במדבר הזה יתמו ושם ימותו. Okay, 36. אנשים אשר שלח משה לתור את הארץ וישובו וילינו עליו וכל העדה להוציא דיבה על הארץ. As for the agents whom Moses sent to scout the land, with those who came back and caused the whole community to mutter against them by spreading calumnies about the land. וימותו האנשים מוציאי דיבת הארץ רעה ומגפה לפני אדוני. Those who spread such calumnies about the land died of plague by the will of Yoshua ben Nun v'Chaleb ben Yefunah hayu min ha'anashim hahem him for those involved in going to scout the land. Only Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Yefunah, survived. And then here, the final point and the most important one in terms of the backdrop for the story of Korach. V'yedaber Moshe et hadvarim ha'ele el kol b'nei Yisrael. And Moses told these words to all of the children of Israel. Yit'amlu ha'am. People grieved exceedingly. So we can understand as we move into the next parsha, Korach, that it's a backdrop of grief. Backdrop of grief and fear. Here we are, we left Egypt, we were saved by God's, miraculous hand, all these plagues and signs and wonders. We stood at Sinai, we're in the wilderness, and we're never getting to see. Really heartbreaking and tragic. And maybe, at least the Torah tells us, fitting. Okay, so now, keeping that in mind, we go to the beginning of this parsha and we look at Korach. What happens with Korach? Now, we'll see in a minute, in a little family tree, that Korach is a cousin of Moshe. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, welcome. Oh, welcome. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehatz ben Levi v'Datan ba'Aviram b'nei Eliyav v'On ben Pelet b'nei Reuben. Now, Korach, son of Kahat, son of Levi, took, along with Datan, Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, sons of Pelet, descendants of Reuben. So there's something really missing in this verse, something very strange. What did Korach take? Vayikach Korach. There's a verb, there's a subject, there's no object. What did Korach take? Right? We don't know. So let's look at Rashi. Vayikach Korach. Lakach et atzmo letzad. He took himself to one side. Letzad achad. Liyot nechalak mitoch eidah. To be divided, right, against the congregation. L'orer al hakuna. To sort of spark an uprising about the priesthood. V'zo shetirgem Onkelos. So Onkelos, the person who translates the whole Torah into Aramaic, translates it as the it's haleg, as if it's a reflexive verb instead of just a regular verb, which it is, and Rashi says about that, nechalak mishar ha'ida lahachazik b'machaloka. So Korach is the one who divides himself from the rest of the congregation, right, to sort of spark or instigate or grasp controversy. Okay. And then it says, finally, they give another proof text from Eov to talk about taking and the taking of the heart, and says, and then Rashi says, "Lahaklicha mishar b'nei Adam," to separate you from other human beings. So Korach is engaging in the kind of taking or the kind of grasping that has us as its intention separation, controversy, division, right? And he's a polarizing figure. Okay. And we're going to make sense of this little genealogy here in a few minutes. But verse 2. ויקומו לפני משה ואנשים מפני ישראל 50 ו200 נשיאי עדה קריאי מועד ענבי שם. So to rise up against Moses together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the communities chosen in the assembly, men of repute. So just like the spies, these guys are not just any guys, right? These are guys of status and leadership. They are princes. Vayikahalu al Moshe, and they ganged up on Moses, on Aharon, and on Aaron. I think the same form of this verb was used after the golden, or at the golden calf, or when the people ganged up against Aaron wanting to create a golden calf. Is that right, Asher Chaim? Is that exactly the same? You know, it could be. It could have been in the singular. Vayamru alehem, and they said to them, "Hav lachem ki chol ha'eda kulam kadoshim." You have too much, because this entire community, this entire congregation, they are all holy. V'tocham Adonai, and in their midst is Adonai. Umadua titnasu al kahal Adonai. And why should you raise yourselves up above the congregation of Adonai? Right? So Korach's argument is basically egalitarian, right? Everybody's holy. So who do you think you are? Right? Look who thinks they're holy, but everybody's holy. Vayishma Moshe vayipol al panav, and Moshe heard it and fell on his face. Vaydaber el Korach el kol anato limor, and he spoke to Korach and his whole congregation, saying, Boker v'yoda Adonai et asher lo. Come morning, and God will make known who is God. Et hakadosh v'hikriv elav, and who is holy, granting direct access or by offering to God. Et asher yivchar bo yakriv elav, the one whom God has chosen will be granted access, will come close to God. Zot, so in other words, we'll see who's really holy, right? You're saying everybody's holy, and we're like, who are we to make ourselves holier than everybody? And they're saying, let God decide, right? Instead of like engaging, like, no, we're holy or we have a right to be leaders, they're not engaging. They're saying God will decide who really should have authority and what the structure of this community is. Zotasu, this you shall do. Do this, you, Korach, and all your band, take fire pans. So this passage started off with Korach taking nothing and ends with Moshe telling them to take fire pans, to take something, right? And to take something which is an instrument of offering to God. Okay, so number one is we have this backdrop, punishment and grief. And number two, in our parsha, right, we have this person who instigates division and controversy. And the first verb that characterizes him is taking without an object. Okay, let's go on, and then I'll take comments if we digest a little bit more material. So what does the Midrash say about what this controversy is really about? So we're in number 4, right? And it says, Vayikach Korach al yedei mana. What led him to enter into dispute? So often what the Midrash does is provide some kind of backstory. What's the background here? What's going on? Al yedei Elitzaphan ben achi aviv shena'asa nasi al mishpachto. So this is all because Elitzaphan, who's my nephew, right, the son of the brother of my father, who was made a prince. Now let's look at this little family tree, number 5. So we see Kohat, and then we see Kohat had 4 sons. The oldest was Amram, right? This is number 5. And we see Aaron, Miriam, and Moses were the children of Amram. And then the sons of Yitzhak are Korach, who's the oldest, Nepheg and Zichri, and then Hebron, who seems not to have had children as far as we know, and then Uziel, who has Mishael, El Safan, and Sitri. And El Safan, for some reason, became a clan leader, and Korach, right, being the oldest of the next oldest to Amram, felt like he should have been that clan leader. that he was passed over. Okay, Amar Korach, Achim Hayu Ache Abba. We just saw 4 brothers. My had Uvene Kahat Amram Yitzhar Chabron Uziel, and the sons of Kahat Amram Yitzhar Chabron Uziel. Amram Habachor Zacha Aharon Beno L'Gdula U'Moshe L'Malchut. So Amram, the oldest of that family, right, was privileged to have Aaron, who rose to greatness in the priesthood, and Moshe, who rose to a kind of royalty. Mira oili told Hashem. And who should be privileged or worthy to take, the next position of status, right? Lo Hasheni, shouldn't it be the second one, or the son of the second son, or Amram's younger brother, the next in line? Shnei Amaru b'nei Kahat Amram Yitzhar ani b'no shel Yitzhar. I'm the son of Yitzhar, the second oldest. Hayiti ra'ui liyot nasi al mishpachti. I should have been the prince over my family.
Especially since it was the second offspring in the previous generation that did all this fancy fathering and mothering.
Oh, interesting.
Like Kohath, right?
Interesting. Yes. So in other words, the birth order is off there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the birth order is yeah. And just like in Genesis, the birth order is off, right, consistently. Right. And Moshe is also the younger one, and he is the one who merited to lead the people. Okay, V'hu asa b'no shel Uziel, katan shel achei abba, he gadol alai. Reini cholek alav u'mevatel kol ma shena'asa al yado. Kach v'chach v'yikach Korach. I was worthy of becoming prince of my family, but he arranged that the son of Uziel, the younger, my father's brother, will be greater than I. I will enter into dispute with him and void everything that he has accomplished. That is why Korach. So what the Midrash is doing, and I discussed this last night a little bit, is putting it in this sort of thread that runs through the Torah of the younger being jealous of the older and wanting the status and power that the elder has. And it makes sense, right? That makes sense as a backdrop for this controversy, that kind of familial jealousy, extended familial jealousy. Now, what about this argument of holiness and egalitarianism? So the rabbis don't really like that, and there's 2 reasons, and I'll give you 2 proof texts for it. One is from Leviticus 19, verses 1-2, in source 6. V'daber Adonai el Moshe le'mor daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael va'amarta alehem kedoshim tihiyu. To speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy. Not you are holy now, but you shall be holy, right? How should you become holy? Through all the commandments I'm giving you. Ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohim. Because I, your God, am holy now, and you have to become like me. You have to become holy, right? But to assume that you're holy, that the whole congregation is holy now, is a kind of hubris that God did not intend. Okay, according to the commentators. Now, here's another example, or a proof text for a different argument. Vata, and this is from Exodus 19. Vata im shomo tishma'u b'koli shmartem iti v'hiyitem li skula michol ha'amim ki li kol ha'aretz. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall. So again, it's conditional. You shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine. In other words, I get to choose, right? Va'atem tiyuli mamlechet kohanim, and you will be for me a kingdom of priests, the goy kadosh, and a holy nation. So again, it's conditional, but there's something else. Korach uses the word kadoshim in the plural, meaning that each person is kulam kadoshim, everyone's holy. But God says goy kadosh, the collective is holy. It's not focused on the individual, which is another argument. V'goy kadosh ela dvarim asher tidaber el bnei Yisrael. These are the words that you should speak to the children of Israel. So, at least tradition does not buy Korach's argument. Neither do Moshe. What's his name?
I was gonna say, I mean, but isn't the nation the collective of the individuals?
Yes, yes, but that's saying that I think there's a difference there. That a collective can be holy without each and every individual necessarily being holy themselves. That some of the people in the collective are not holy, and yet the nation can rise to holiness. I mean, isn't that true that not everyone in a community is quote unquote holy, right? Not every individual. So, yeah. Okay. Let me just stop.
I'm
Yeah,
lost.
Nikki.
Can you encapsulate what
Yes,
just
I
happened?
can. So basically, Korach makes an argument, right? He says, the whole community is holy. Why should you raise yourselves high? Right. Moshe and Aaron above us. So the rabbis say two things. One is that God commands the people to be holy in the future. In other words, it's conditional. They're not holy now. And Korach is making an argument, everybody's holy. You're already holy, as if you've achieved that already, but it's aspirational. It's not something that's already achieved. And the other is that Korach speaks in the language of the plural, meaning every individual is holy. And in the proof text that I just showed you, the focus is on the collective being holy as opposed to every individual.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments before I go on? Yeah, Marla.
Maybe this is a question, maybe a spoiler, but why is this being featured? Why is this argument being featured in the Torah? We'll become holy eventually versus we are all holy.
So what's being featured in the Torah is Korach's argument about holiness. But the rabbis take it apart so they can kind of discredit Torah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So does that refine, do you want to shift your question?
Why would the rabbis want to take that argument?
Korach, because they don't like Korach. Because the Torah doesn't like Korach. Because God doesn't like Korach.
Is from the beginning of
They don't want to legitimate Korach's argument. Some people would say, and some people have said over time, like, oh, Korach's the great rebel, right? He's making an argument of egalitarianism. It makes sense, right? We should be egalitarian. Why do Moshe and Aaron have too much power?
It's supposed to like an elite class.
Yeah, it's a rebellion against elitism. It doesn't not make sense, but I'm giving you the arguments against it.
So this is a question for Tomas.
Right. It's a question for Tomas. We're going back to the revolution in England? Is that what we're doing now?
Oh,
Let's
after
go
Thomas,
away.
do you think that the early Christian thinkers would actually looked at this and said, oh, he was onto something?
Unfortunately not, because I
No.
think those early Christians, the success of early Christianity was its assimilation as the state religion of the Roman Empire, and what they were interested in was hierarchy. So this would not be.
This is not, but it did appeal to some people in the Chavarah movement, for sure. I've heard people make this argument. Or different. The
I think
Chavarah
some
movement
more.
was the Jewish movement that arose in the 60s and is kind of still alive, although in different iterations. Now, which was very much influenced in the 60s and hippies and sort of, kind of 60s lens on Judaism and this challenge of power and the sort of normative hierarchies in Judaism were very much challenged.
I want to say, as the immediate past chair of the National Chavarah Committee, which is having its institute starting on the 29th of July,
wait, who's
Boston
talking?
in Maryland, it is very much alive.
Oh, okay, Darius, I'm so sorry. Thank you for saying that. It is very much alive. In fact, the Chavarah movement, their national conference is one of the places which helped me return to Judaism. So thank you for saying that. It's very much alive. Is it as alive as it was, do you think, in the 80s?
No.
No, it's not. So, but okay, very much alive, but not quite as alive. And one could say the whole movement of independent minyanim, even though they might deny it, are sort of like the next iteration of the Chavurah movement. That's what I would say, Darius. But thank you for I don't usually like when people jump in, but I like that you jumped in. Thank you. Do you want to say anything else about the Chavurah movement?
I believe if you go to chavarad.org, it is still possible to register for our institute, which begins on the 29th of July. That's what else I will say.
Excellent. And do you think that Korach is a good representative of the Chavurah movement? Do you think
I
that's a
just
possibility?
read a midrash. I think it was posted by Rabbi Aryeh Bernstein in Chicago, who I originally met at an NHC retreat, National Chavarah Committee, suggesting that Korach is more like a demagogue who uses egalitarian language.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying basically. But okay,
Because he just wants power.
because he just wants that.
Diane Jay wanted to.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
I know. I got it. I got it. But thank you, Jay.
I'll defer to my turn later.
You sure?
I don't want to use up my turn.
Okay.
You got to store it all up and then give it to me like in a 10-minute, right? 10-minute question. Okay, got it. All right.
Tactical move, I like it.
I think we're going on. Yeah. Good. All right.
Well, I was thinking, I might as well say it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here, I mean, the whole thing that we have at the beginning is that it really people are complaining about Moses' leadership. I mean, that's what it, and this is also the same. But God seems to put it on Himself. They're really complaining about me, and this also seems to be
Because complaining
he's
about
coming
Moshe and
Moses
God.
and the Kahuna, but God, but in terms of the theme that we had before and why they're not going to, it's about complaint about God's leadership.
Absolutely.
So this is that's why Korach is, even if he had a legitimate argument, which sometimes you can take and maybe in the future you can implement as it has happened, to be kadosh, to be am kadosh, which is very legitimate. It's a great thing because there is a holiness, but it's conditional. But here the argument is about God. You're arguing about God. Mitlonim alai,
Yeah.
mitlonim alai, and this is the karma.
Right.
So I think this is the same. It's the same powerful that that Korach is bringing here,
Yeah.
and therefore he's for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong point, and it's true. Like Moshe and God are very identified with one another, and so when you complain about Moshe, you're challenging, and we'll see you're challenging like the ikar, the principle of the whole enterprise, right? And and that's exactly what happened in the last parsha as well, right? The mitlo nanimalai, as you're saying, right? What are they really complaining about? They don't want to go forward. And they certainly don't want to go forward in the face of dying in the wilderness. Why would they want to go in the face of that? Right? So you kind of invent controversies that will kind of stop the action and distract.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Paul, and then Jay's going to use his turn. And then, okay. Paul, Jay, and Esther.
It's interesting to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then Jill, and I'm going to ask people to make relatively short comments if you can, and then we're going to go on. Good.
Korach could have made a better argument.
Okay, Paul, what argument do you want Korach to make, or do you want to make? Go ahead.
That there is it's not a question of right to speak. It's a question of the manner that speech is taken. Moses is a unrepentant solo operator. Jethro pleaded with him, and for a moment, Moses seemed to comply, but he re-abrogated himself his sole leadership position, and Korah could have taken a more technical argument, a more sideways.
So say it. What's the argument? Say it.
You don't know how to delegate. You're not doing a very good job here. The mission, we all get the mission, but the tactics are poor.
So you're saying Moshe's not really partnering with his people. He knows how to partner with God.
Well, Moses is constantly complaining about the task, the size
He's not
of the
exactly
task.
constantly complaining.
Well, he's frequently complaining about the
There's
task.
only a couple of instances.
All right. Well, here he falls on his face and he doesn't know what to do with it, and he consults with God. And the conversation again isn't. I mean, what the storytellers are saying to us is that there may be something to Korach's argument, but he hasn't said it right.
Okay.
He hasn't made the
Interesting.
right.
Interesting. So I like the way
in
you're
the right
listening to
way.
the story to see like what might emerge here that's actually legitimate.
So I'm just going to, so the last point is it is that Korach is being punished for. It's the quality of his argument. It's not exactly the argument itself.
See, to me, it's more indicative, and we'll see this in the Kabbalistic literature, that Korach takes without an object to his taking. Korach just wants that.
And it's therefore inexpertly done, poorly done.
Correct. Okay, Jay, and then Esther.
I've had a 180 here, which I always love when that happens.
Already?
Yeah,
Wow.
I've always been a fan. I've always said if I were to start a congregation, it would be B'nai Korah. But I disagree with Paul. I don't think it's. I think and I think Darius's use of the word demagoguery is key. I think, and gosh, do we have examples of that today? The prequel is important. There's mutterings. There's desires to go back to Egypt. There's dissatisfaction. And you have people in power who manipulate that dissatisfaction in populist movements. In other words, they use that energy to gain power, to create totalitarian hierarchies, etc. So I think that's also a compelling argument to what's going on here.
I think that's important. It's sort of it's utilizing a grief and anxiety and a resentment in order to distract how we actually go.
Yeah, I don't think it was about efficiency, like how can we all be holy in a better way than having a solo leader? It's really about power.
Yeah. So I just want to say that
Sorry.
Helio put in the chat, Shabbat Shalom, what is Jay doing on site?
Sometimes I'm peripatetic.
It's funny how you come off the screen and you become alive. I love it. Helio, you too could do this. Okay, so now we are.
I'm Esther from West Palm Beach.
Esther from West Palm Beach, Devorah's sister. Welcome.
This, of course, is one of a very disturbing story. And in our society right now, we believe in diversity and dissent and in civil rights and freedom of speech. And here we have the rabbis putting in this story, I think, to scare, not to scare the people, but to teach them that, allowing human individual rights is important, but there are consequences. And look how you can be swallowed up in a minute. So I think this was a warning to people, because this is a very disturbing thing that happened.
A warning to
a man.
them to not what?
If you're going to exert your individuality, you've got to work within the system. Israel has a lot of rules. You can't own land. You have to be with your tribe. The women can't marry this way, and it's a difficult structure to live within. And that's why people rebel and run away from it. So this was a warning that I think they put in the Torah, so people can say, there will be consequences.
There are always consequences. Someone was telling me the other day that they got away with a bunch of things. And I looked at them and I was like, we didn't get away with any of these things. And I think it's true. Like, I don't think, even if people don't know what we do, I don't think we ultimately get away with anything. Because we live with the consequences. They're in our consciousness, even if we weren't punished by them. Like, we become what we've done. And this person actually has suffered a lot of consequences, but didn't make my mind. Didn't sort of connect the dots. Doesn't matter. Okay. I am going to take 4 more minutes. No, 9:30. We're going on with the text. Okay. So Jill and then David.
Okay. I'll try to be brief. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Okay. So at this time, it's a nation of priests. So everybody, the community is holy. And so if that's the case, then they have this kind of connection with Hashem that a lot of people today don't have. And if you go by the religious interpretation, of Torah and our history after the destruction of the temple, we don't have that kind of direct a line, as we did in the past. So people in the past were holy, and they saw if they were holy, then they saw that God had appointed Moses. So I agree. I think it's not really a question with Moses's appointment, because the thing speaks for itself. If they're holy, they know that God chose Moses as the leader. But I think I just want to emphasize the comment that someone else made, which is really, it's a question about God, even if they were connected with God and God's choices.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, David Kurtz, good to see you.
It's great to see. It's great to see you, but David S. had his hand up way before me.
David S., I didn't see that. It didn't come up on my screen.
Oh, thank you. I just have a question about merits and meritocracy.
Yeah,
And
is this David Siegman?
Huh?
Is this David Siegman?
No.
No. Okay, different David S. Okay, go ahead.
And my question is spirituality a meritocracy? And what spurred Korach to get so upset? Is it because he said, in lineage, I should be the one to be chosen for this position, but I was passed over and someone younger got it? And maybe the slight is that I wasn't good enough. I didn't merit it, and he didn't like that.
Ooh. Yes, so it could be, and if you look at Genesis, it could be that that's what's happening, that the younger merits over the elder. And also, Genesis is a story of like God turning around or overturning the natural order. It's really God's revolution. And here too, one could say that. Korach thinks he's in charge. He thinks he's good enough, but apparently he's not. So I think your point is well taken. Thank you. Okay, David, and then Beth, I'm going to go to you after the next set. Okay.
Well, what's cool is David kind of made my point. What we have here, one of the major reasons I'm so proud of Judaism, is that it's the end of patriarchal lineage. Certainly, like you just pointed out in Genesis, that was the order for all the empires around them, and it's a wonderful thing that here, well, who determines merit? In this case, it's God. In this point in the story, it's God's that's determining. It's determined that Moses, through whatever he's merited along the way, perhaps killing the Egyptian, his whole story, he merits this leadership role. Aaron merits what he merits, but that's not the way it's going to become in the future. And I think it's one of the great moments, actually, in Torah.
Great. Yes, I agree. It is a great moment in Torah and really dramatic, as we will see in a few moments. So let me share my screen. So first of all, okay, we're on number 8. We're going to see a very interesting connection to Korach's name, right? So we talked earlier about grief. And here is an injunction, right, to the children of Israel in Deuteronomy about how not to grieve. Banim atem ladonai, you are children of your God Adonai. Adonai, your Lord, your God. Lo titgodedu, velo tasimu korcha ben einechem lamet. You shall not dash yourself or shave the front of your heads because of the dead. So this word korcha seems to be shaving the front of your head. It also refers to baldness, and it also refers to frozenness. Right, so that's an interesting kerach, right? Kerach is ice. So really interesting associations with the name Korach to grief and frozenness. Fascinating. Ki am kadosh ata ladonai Elohecha. So again, for you are people holy to God, right? Holy to God, your Lord. Uvecha bachar Adonai liot lo la'am skula mikol amim asher al pnei ha'adamah. And God chose you from among all other peoples on earth to be a treasured people. So what's happening here? And there does seem to be some parallels between this text in our text, both because like a treasured people, kadosh, holy nation, but also titgodedu, which is in the hitpael, which is in the reflexive. When it's not in the reflexive, means factions, gedut, right? And that's what the Talmud picks up on. Lo titnu gedida b'sheret b'psarchem. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Rashi. Let's skip Rashi. And go to the Talmud in Yevamot. Amar le Reish Lakish le Rabbi Yochanan. So Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Ikri kan lo titgodedu lo teasu agudot. So instead of reading lo titgodedu, don't cut yourselves. It really means read it as don't make for yourself factions. So the Talmud also is sort of drawing a line between our text about Korach to this text, because Korach is all about creating a faction within the whole, right? And creating division in the community. Okay, so now I want to get to something, and we're going to do one more topic on this, and then I will take comments. So there's a fascinating understanding or interpretation of the whole episode of Korach, as Korach and Moshe being reincarnations of Cain and Abel. So what is that about, right? And it makes sense, related to the conversation we were having before, that a few people refer to, lastly, David Kurtz, about, an elder and a younger. And that whole paradigm starts with Cain and Abel, where Abel's offering is preferred, and Cain is so jealous, the older, right, that he kills his brother. So let's see what we say here. And this is from Chaim Vital, who is the chief student of the Arizal, who basically founded Kabbalah. V'daki Korach ben Yitzhar, know that Korach ben Yitzhar, who mibechinat haruach shel Kain, comes from the spirit of Cain. And therefore, he wanted to kill his brother Hevel, who is our teacher Moshe, to whom Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom. The Korach Hashav, and Korach thought, Hivo Yitukan Cain Habachor, thought that he could re-establish Cain as the firstborn. That is why he rose up against Moshe, who was Hevel. In other words, this is the age-old strife, right? The age-old conflict between the older and the younger. And again, the older wants to reassert his dominance over the older. The older wants to reassert his dominance over the younger. Okay, so that's why they say it's a reincarnation, but there are other reasons as well. So let's look at who Cain and Hevel were. Asher Chaim, do you feel like reading?
Sure, I was just going back to the genealogy and this mix of second son of first son and first son of second son. It's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, we're at
number 13.
Yes. Bereshit, v'ha'adam yada et Hava ishto v'tahar v'teled et Cain v'tomer qaniti ish et Adonai.
So the name Cain means to acquire.
The earthling had intimacy with Hava, his wife. She conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have acquired a man with God. But Tosef laledet et ahiv et Hevel, vahi Hevel ro'eh tzon v'Cain haya oved adama. She continued to give birth to his brother Hevel, vapor, etiology of name not given. Hevel became a shepherd of sheep, and Cain became a worker of the land. Vayinqes yamim vayave Cain mipri ha'adama mincha l'Adonai. At the end of some time, Cain brought from the produce of the earth a grain offering to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. V'Hevel hevi gam hu mibechorot sono u'mehelvehen. And Hevel also brought from the firstborns of his flock and from their fat. Vayisha Adonai el Hevel ve'el minchato. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh favored Hevel and his offering. Ve'el Cain ve'el minchato lo sha'a. But towards Cain and his offering, God did not show grace. Vayihar Cain me'od vayiplu panav. It caused anger to Cain very much, and his face fell.
So you could see
falling on face. Huh.
falling on face, and Moshe also falls on face. Very nice. Yes. Wow. That, and also the next piece are the two literary connections, but also the fact that, you know, Hevel is associated with a vapor, and Moshe is, you know, not quite like other people and more connected to the heavens than to the earth. And Korach is a taker and Cain is a taker, right? Cain's name is named for acquisition. Right? And if you look carefully about what each of them bring, right? The Hevel Hevi Gamhu Mibchorot Sono, able for his part for the choices of the firstlings. Umichel Dehen. Like there's a lot more language around what Hevel offers than around what Cain offers, right?
Is Moshe also sort of a shepherd of his flock?
And Moshe is the shepherd of his flock, exactly, and Hevel the shepherd. Thank you. And then the next piece, right? Cain's punishment, Va'ata arur ata min ha'adama asher patzta pi halakachet et mei achicha miyadecha. Therefore you shall be more accursed than the ground which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. And the next time the ground opens and uses exactly that language, patzta, right, is here in our parsha, in Bamidbar, V'im bri'a yivra Adonai upatzta ha'adama et piha uval'ah. Adonai brings about something unheard of, so that the ground opens its mouth. Uval'ah, and swallows them, the kol asher lahem, and everything that they have. V'yardu chayim sha'olah. They go down alive into Sha'ol, which is kind of underworld. V'yadatem ki ni'atsu anashim ha'ele et Adonai. You shall know that those involved have spurned Adonai, which actually underscores your point from before, that they were spurning not Moshe, but Adonai. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of comments and go to our next topic here. Okay, Beth was waiting, and then Nikki.
Shabbat shalom. While Moshe was indeed the third child of a first child, he yet is in a very unique position hierarchically relative to the rest of the Hebrews, and that is that he is the step grandson of Pharaoh. So hierarchically, you know, if we're going to look at it in terms of social hierarchy, he was more elevated than the rest of them. And secondly, he also was in a unique position on account of being the step grandchild of Pharaoh, and that is that he straddled both worlds. And so he had a unique set of experiences, and he had freedom that the other Hebrews did not have as slaves. So he really was in a very unique position to be elected by God to lead the people. And there's nothing that is told to us either in the text or in the Midrash about what the experiences of these other cousins were that might make them qualify for this sort of leadership.
Nice. And you're also adding, I think, another level of understanding of why Korach would be jealous. Like Moshe never had to endure slavery. Right? I can understand that jealousy. You know, I'm jealous, for instance, Don't tell anybody else. For instance, like I grew up in a very traditional community. I only, as a girl, went to synagogue on Yom Kippur and on Rosh Hashanah. That's it. And I sat in the back. And I didn't even really have like a siddur in my hands. I'm jealous of guys who grew up, like, had complete facility and comfort with the tradition in a way that I wasn't given. I'm jealous. I have to confess. And I'm thankful for the opportunities I had as an adult to kind of remedy that. But there's nothing like my understanding, like having that as a child, right? And that sort of license and freedom and fluidity and sense that, wow, the tradition's really, right? I'm wondering, just raise your hand for a minute on Zoom too, like how many people really grew up with that and felt like, wow, I really have that, really have that sense like this is mine. So I'm jealous of you now. So I think that's a really important point. Yeah, I have empathy for sure. Okay, Nikki.
Yeah, it's just throughout this whole episode, I keep thinking of Milton's Paradise Lost and whether Milton knew this passage, as I'm sure he did, and that was his influence in creating Lucifer.
Lucifer, oh really?
Who said, it is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
Great. That's actually a great segue to my next topic.
I love that.
Yeah, reign in hell and live in heaven. And let's think about why that would be. Why might reigning in hell might actually be more active serving in heaven? Okay, I see, Amy, do you have a quick comment before we go on?
Yes, I just want to say, as the public
defender.
I'm sorry,
Amy, and then Mark. Go ahead.
I just want to give a note as a public defender to Korach. He was, in fact,
are you a public defender?
No, I'm a scientist. but as a public defender to Korach, I would like to say that he was, in fact, the wealthiest man that ever lived. He was the treasurer of Pharaoh. He held a very lofty and authoritative position, and so was used to being in charge and felt that he had the qualifications to be in charge. That's all I want to say.
So great. So
I rest my
Amy's
case.
Reducing a midrashic level where Korach was understood as a rich man, and not only that, the midrash says that he unearthed treasures that Joseph had buried of silver and gold. And let me add one more thing that I actually discussed in my sermon last night. Even till today in Israel, right, a common phrase is Ashir Korach, as rich as Korach. Right, that's a way to say that someone's so wealthy. Right, so he has all this and feels like he has nothing, which was the topic of my sermon last night. Okay, and Mark Allen Hort.
And his pipsqueak cousin was a shepherd.
Mark, good to see you. Go ahead.
Good morning. So I'm just going to jump back to the discussion about the collective being holy as opposed to the individual. I've been studying something called complexity theory, and
complexity theory. Ooh.
And I'll give you two examples very quickly. If you have 3 ants, they are not a colony. If you have 10 ants, they are not a colony. But if you have 25 ants, they start to self-organize into a colony. And nobody is in charge, but they are doing the things that a colony does. Same with starlings. 5 starlings is not a flock. 10 starlings is not a flock. But once you get to like 30 starlings, you begin to get, murmurations, and you watch the patterns in the sky. No one starling is leading them. They are just sort of forming into this. And I'm thinking of the sort of the body of the people Israel as together, as holy. And so that if one soul, and going back to the mourning, why you don't gas or shave the head, it's, it's like God changing a light bulb, right? It's, that light goes out, but another light comes in. And so it's a whole sort of thing. And it's not it's dependent on any one particular person. It is the body of the whole. And there's a lot more that can be said. This is just like a little bit, and a lot could be discussed, but I just wanted to bring that up.
That is fascinating, especially since the beginning of this book about Midbar is all about how the tribes organize themselves spatially. That is really fascinating. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I'm now ready to go. Okay, so now I want to get into this idea of being a servant leader, which directly connects to your comments about Lucifer. So here's how Moshe is described at the end of Deuteronomy. Vayamat, we're in number 16. Vayamat sham Moshe evet Adonai be'eretz Moab al pi Adonai. So Moses, the servant of Adonai, died there in the land of Moab at the command of Adonai. So the kind of leader Moshe was a servant of Adonai, right? And if you remember, when the people were in Egypt, God took them out, and the shift happened from being Avdei or Abadim leParo to Avdei Hashem. So slaves to Pharaoh, to being servants of God, but the same word is used. So from slaves to servant, the only difference is the object of the word. Right? What's defining the servitude means that you're free or not. It's not that you're free not to serve. No. Oh, I see you're thinking deeply. I'm feeling it. What?
I'm just
Nothing. Okay. Okay. Can someone read the next passage in English from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs? May his memory
I'll
be
read
blessing, number 17. Okay, go ahead.
Servant leadership. The most famous buildings in the ancient world were the Mesopotamian.
Okay, a little louder, Nikki. If you're going to
The
read,
most famous buildings in the ancient world were the Mesopotamian ziggurats and Egyptian pyramids. They were more than just buildings. They were statements in stone of a hierarchical social order. They were wide at the base and narrow at the top. At the top was the king or pharaoh, at a point, so it was believed, where heaven and earth met. Beneath was a series of elites, and beneath them the laboring masses.
Okay, we stop there for a minute. So where does heaven and earth meet amongst the people in the wilderness? Right? In the Mishkan. In the Mishkan, or in the Ohel Moed. It's like, God causes God's presence to dwell amongst the people. So it's in their midst, right in the center of
Very
the people.
horizontal structure.
Horizontal, exactly. It's a horizontal sort of heaven and earth meeting, and heaven coming down to earth.
So hevel.
Heaven.
Hevel. I mean, it's not so concrete.
It's not so concrete. Oh, beautiful. It's more vaporous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, go on, Nikki.
In a social order in which everyone has equal dignity in the eyes of heaven, a leader does not stand above the people. They serve the people and they serve God. The great symbol of biblical Israel, the menorah, is an inverted pyramid or ziggurat, broad at the top, narrow at the base. The greatest leader is therefore the most humble. Moses was very humble, more so than anyone else on the face of the earth.
My husband always jokes, like, look who's telling us that Moshe is so humble. Moshe wrote the Torah. A little, right? A little ironic there.
The name given to this is servant leadership, and its origin is in the Torah. The highest accolade given to Moses is that he was the servant of the Lord, Deuteronomy 34:5. Moses is given this title 18 times in Tanakh. Only one other leader merits the same description, Joshua, who is described this way twice.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. And I just wanted to add this by possibly C.S. Lewis, but I also saw it was attributed to Rick Warren.
But Diane, please don't. Rick Warren rules in hell. Like this is a sacred room, and to bring that individual into this discourse, he's everything bad about Christianity. Like I'm scandalized to see his name in this reading.
So let's just say it was. Let's just say it's C.S. Lewis.
Please.
You want to skip the whole part?
I think so, because
Okay.
because this use of humility is actually about
Okay, I hear you. It's Korach.
too. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I hear you. Okay. I'm just letting that sink in.
Now I'm interested in hearing it, but
No,
yes.
he's
It's on-
he's a pathetic, abject, scandalous
It's
figure.
on the page. So I just want to think back to what you were saying about Lucifer. And why would someone feel like it's better to reign in hell than to, what was it, to serve in heaven? Why do you think that could be possibly attractive?
It's better to be a king.
Or the old,
Better to be a king, better to be in control.
Yeah.
a big fish in a little pond kind of thing.
Big fish in a little pond.
But do you find this not in your own mind? I mean, it seems obvious to me, like what everyone's saying, like it's like you're in control, you have power, people do what you want. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm like a maniacal person, but it's obvious. I mean, I've had friends where I don't really like them that much, but they love me. So
Well, that's nice.
no, well, now I have friends who I love. I used to. I mean, it's easy to see this. Why are you asking the question?
Why am I asking the question? I don't think it's totally obvious.
And
And
what
I
is-
think it's an interesting question.
And I was interested in knowing why you didn't. I'm seriously, because I want to get other perspectives.
Yeah.
Why do you feel it's not so obvious?
I can chime in. I think for if you'd rather reign in hell because you can have an influence over, you can be in charge and maybe have that good, spread, whereas, heaven is already kind of going to do its thing with or without your leadership.
Interesting. Because to me, it seems pretty obvious that serving in heaven is preferred. So I was curious about the opposite. That's why. But I want to say one thing about that. I think there's something about serving that makes you more like heaven, right? It's like if you want a sort of a definite, defined ego that's in control, that's sort of more like God. Right, back to the reincarnation.
It's control.
Right, it's control. And it's sort of like feeling the power and the invulnerability of yourself. Okay. So we have 6 minutes. Jay, is it like one line?
Just for those who heard your go on Facebook and hear Rabbi's bar from yesterday, serving in heaven also makes you understand your portion and how it contributes to the whole as a servant.
I mean, in Milton, the reason is that Lucifer was jealous of the free will of human beings, because angels, whatever else they have, they're magical creatures. They don't have free will.
Right.
They are slaves of a different kind, the most noble of all. And the story is that Lucifer, like the miracle of being mortal, is not only the fact of your own death, but the fact of your own liberty. That you are given free will for better and for worse. And Lucifer was jealous of that, and sought to have this revolution in heaven where everyone can be free.
Also a line in Milton where the devil talks about throw off your yoke of servitude in heaven. So this is kind of a responsibility.
Yeah.
But hell is also a narcissistic place where you give in to your emotions, hate, lust, where when you're spiritual and in heaven, you don't have the need to do that anymore.
Okay.
Elevated.
All right, I'm going to go on. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to go on. Sorry, no. Okay, everybody, look at number 21. We have to end with like a different image and a cover now. So they're after Korach and his men are swallowed up by the earth. It's actually not totally clear what happens to Korach. It doesn't matter right now. I'm sorry, I can't take any more comments now. There's this amazing passage that feels like a kind of poetic and also productive, like healing response to what happened. Asher Chaim, can you read it? Number 21.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, י"ה said to Moshe, דבר אל בני ישראל, לקח מאיתם מכה לבית אב מאת כל נשיאיהם לבית אבותם, 12 מכות, איש את שמו תכתוב על מכהו. Speak to the children of Israel and take from them one staff rod for each father's house, from all of their princes by father's houses, 12 staffs. Each one should put his name on the staff. Yet Shem Aharon tichtov al mate Levi. The name of Aaron you shall write on the staff of the tribe of Levi. Ki makeh had lerosh beit avotam. One staff for each tribe. V'nachtam ba'oel mo'ed lifnei ha'edut asher iva'ed lachem shama. Place them in the tent of meeting before the tablets of testimony, where I will meet with you there. V'haya ha'ish asher harbo makehu yifrah. It shall be the one whom I choose, his staff shall blossom. V'hashikoti me'alai et tilunot b'nei Yisrael asher hem melinim aleichem. And I will rid myself of all of the complaining of the Israelites who are complaining against you. Vaydaber Moshe el b'nei Yisrael. Moshe spoke to the Israelites. Vayitnu elav kol nesiehem, and all of their princes gave to him makeh lenesi ehad, mateh lenesi ehad leveit avotam, shneim asar matot, one staff for each prince of tribe, one staff for each tribe, 12 staffs. Umarkeh Aharon betoch matotam, the staff of Aaron among the staffs. Vayanoch Moshe et hamakot lifnei Adonai be'olam ha'edut. Moshe rested the staffs in the presence of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in the tent of the testimony. Vayehi mimocharat, and on the next morning, Vayavo Moshe el ohel ha'edut. Moshe came to the tent of testimony. Hinei parah mate Aharon leveit Levi. And behold, the staff of Aaron of the tribe of Levi had blossomed. Vayose perah, it brought forth blossoms. Vayase seeds, and complete, it blossomed, it produced fruit. Vaygmosh kedim, and bore almonds. Vayose Moshe, Vayose Moshe et kol hamakot milifnei Adonai el bnei Yisrael, Vayiru, Vayitchu ish makehu. Moshe had brought the staffs, all of the staffs, out from the presence of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh to the Israelites, and they saw and they took their staffs.
So this is God's sign about who God selects to have authority in God's community. It's not a, what this passage is telling us. It's not something that happens on the human level, right? It's on the divine level. What a beautiful way for God to show that Aaron is chosen to do what Aaron does, right? Through almond blossoms, or his staff sprouting with almond blossoms. And just to read this, which I thought was so beautiful, and also harkens back to the menorah. For now, I'm just going to read the second paragraph, and now we're in number 22. The almond tree is distinct in not only that it blossoms early, but also in that it then rapidly buds leaves, develops new branches, and forms its sustaining fruit, all before the flower's calyx drops off. Its Hebrew name Shaked means the early waker, and it may symbolize God's watchfulness or the speed with which God responds. It is also the legitimating emblem of the Aaronite priesthood. At the end of Korach's rebellion, number 17, Moses deposits the staff of all the Israelite chieftains in the tent of meeting, and therefore the staff of Aaron had sprouted, had brought forth sprouts, produced blossoms, and borne. So this leaves me with, I'll go back to what Mark Allen Horn said about complexity and communities, and the way they blossom is actually not in anyone's control. Even the purported leaders, right? They may say, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. Communities do, and I've seen this over the last, 13 years here. Communities do with what communities will do. And they sprout and they blossom and they complain and they leave and they come. And it's, it's not in anyone's control. So my Havanah for us, the Shabbat, that we will blossom and bloom as communities do and as God wants us to.
Hey.
Sorry, I couldn't take any more.
Eat lots of
Amen.
almonds.